evening. Thank you for having me. I am delighted to be here, and I'm hoping to deep dive into the conversation and to tap into the experiences that I've had in the community and to learn from all our panelists. Thank you for being here. Well, so the panelists will be introduced, and then they'll take a seat at the table. Oh, wait a second.
Yeah, we should wait 2 seconds.
Just tap it.
Princess, you want to tap it?
Record.
Now we can do it?
Testing. I will introduce the panelists, and then I'll read a little bit about their backgrounds, and then, oh, wonderful, thank you. And then they'll approach a table where they'll have a seat, and we'll begin our discussion. And the conversation tonight is around the challenges that they experience in utilizing faith-based properties to provide housing or affordable housing in Prince William County. And so the questions, when we open up for questions, which will be after each of them present, you'll have a minute to answer. And like Tracy said, it'll be civil and fun. This is my first time doing it, and I promise to use all my tools in my toolkit to ensure that I stick with the history of moderation and the fun experience that you're used to. And so we'll have a productive conversation. If you have any questions, you are welcome to ask questions during the presentation. Just raise your hand, and you'll be acknowledged, and you'll be given time to speak or ask your question. You can have a follow-up question, and as long as it remains within the allotted time frame. Is that clear? Any questions? And so I would like to go ahead and introduce our panelists. Again, after they've spoken, they've introduced themselves. After they've presented, you can ask questions during the question and answer period, but you may also ask questions before we get to that part, okay, of the segment of the evening. So I'd like to go ahead and introduce George Davies, who's the Executive Director of Creating Foundations for Hope. George, if you please come up, and I'll read a little bit about your bio. George is an experienced senior manager with demonstrated history in working in affordable housing industry. He's a mission-focused leader with 20 plus years in diverse experience in affordable housing. A hands-on leader and influential collaborator. Perfect setting for Mr. Davies. He excels in managing and advancing critically important programs, building high-performing teams, and effectively administering housing and grant programs. Skilled in nonprofit organization, social services, event planning, strategic planning and organizational development, housing operations, and management. Please give a warm welcome for George Davies, who also specializes in policy development and leadership. Next, I'd like to introduce Reverend Dr. Michael Sessoms. With 20 years of leadership and management experience with documented success in health service management, emergency medical planning, human resource management, training and development, and impact change within organizations, he's interested in establishing, developing, and maintaining effective policies and measurable return on investment in support of diversity and organization effectiveness programs. Welcome. We're happy to have you. And next, I'd like to introduce Steve Liga. Steve is the owner of Liga Consulting and Training, a company that provides consultation and training based on his extensive skills and expertise in nonprofit management, strategic vision planning, addiction prevention and policy, program development, and evaluation. He has over 30 years of experience in the field of social services, 25 years of experience in which he spent as the CEO of various nonprofit organizations. Mr. Liga's volunteer service also includes positions within many nonprofit board of directors, such as Zero Abuse Project, where he's currently the vice chair. He holds multiple credentials, including licensed master social work, licensed substance abuse treatment professional, certified prevention specialist, and clinical supervisor. Give a warm welcome to Mr. Liga. And unfortunately, I am so sorry, Alex. I don't have your bio in front of me. But Alex is the Assistant Director of Planning and Land Use Development in Prince William County. He brings extensive experience in the process that individuals, specifically the topic that we're about to discuss tonight, faith-based organization and the process by which they have to go through to get permit and changing their designations from one land use permission to another. I made that up because I went on my memory of the conversation that we had with them. Welcome everyone, welcome gentlemen. It's such a pleasure to have you here and a delight to have this conversation. I would like to begin by introducing myself and tell you a little bit about the work that I do, and then we can begin the conversation. My name is Frances Robin. I'm the Executive Director at the Virginia Women and Family Support Center, a topic I could talk about all night. And it's really bad because every time I have a microphone, I feel like that's my introduction to keep going and going and going. But I digress. We house women who are pregnant and homeless, and we provide housing for 24 months. And in the 24 months, we equip them with the tools to become independent and self-sufficient. So this conversation tonight is really important to me to engage our subject matter experts in this area of talking about affordable housing in Prince William County. We provide long-term housing to women who are pregnant and homeless in Prince William County with our first home we opened in 2016 in Haymarket, and we opened a second house in October of 2024 in Manassas, and we have a third location in Gainesville. And we'll talk about pivoting and all the work that we do to ensure that we are sustainable. We provide the tools and resources moms need to become independent and self-sufficient. So with that said, being on the forefront on the critical purview of seeing the hurdles that moms have to go through, our program really focuses on getting rid of the hurdles to ensure success and to ensure that moms thrive. And so as a result of taking and getting rid of the barriers, we provide all the services for our residents in-house. And the only time that we go outside of the residence, it's usually for trauma or mental health support. Sometimes we do virtually, but we could talk about that in greater detail in a little bit. And most times they have to go in person. So that's one of the ways that the moms have to go outside of our residence to ensure that they're getting the services to experience success. Otherwise, all the services, all the resources, all the support is provided in-house. And with that said, the reason for that is because we see and we understand how difficult it is for vulnerable populations to navigate processes, to navigate systems, to experience success when they are living below the poverty level, and most times they don't have access to transportation and a variety of other necessities. So I would like to use this point to segue into our conversation, and I will ask Reverend Sessoms, my first question. Right. Seeing the population that we currently are discussing, moms who are vulnerable in crisis because they lack housing. As a leader of a congregation, teaching on taking care of your neighbor and your brothers and sisters, how do you prepare for a mother in your congregation who may experience or who might become pregnant and may experience homelessness? And when we're talking about affordable housing in Prince William County, if you were to refer them to services or members in your congregation, but there's a pushback because having vulnerable populations like this access affordable housing in your community, not necessarily being open to having this population living next to them, but will respond to your plea for help by providing support. How do you navigate those spaces when you have to talk to your congregants about inviting the most vulnerable, even if it means having them dwell in the neighborhood or the community in which they live?
That's a lot, but I'll start this way. I look at my situation growing up. I was youngest of 10 children. When I was 5 years old, I was traumatized by social services coming and putting us on this van, taking us to the judge chamber. He said, "We're splitting y'all up." He was taken from our single mother. All 10 of us split up. And so I have a heart for people that are on the margins, if you will. And I believe that the church and our faith institutions should be what you call hospitals, right? We're hospitals. We're not here to decide who we're going to take care of and who we're not going to take care of. We're here to help, and we are supposed to be a part of what I call the beloved community. And so we're out to treat people the way we want to be treated. And so I teach that, I preach that, but most of all, I try to live that. And I believe that my congregation, even at this point, we are fighting for affordable housing. We have some land across the street from our church. Because of COVID, there was a lot of churches that was thinking about building a new sanctuary, if you will. But post-COVID, mindset changed because now people are attending bedside Baptist church, as we call it, right? They're not coming into the sanctuary, but they're watching online.
Yeah.
All right? And so that's just a reality. And so what better use can we use that land now because of the fact I have young ladies in my congregation who are wonderful teachers in Prince William County, but guess what? They can't afford to live in Prince William County. Now they're living all the way down, matter of fact, because Stafford is getting expensive. Now they're going all the way down to Caroline County and commuting to work. Okay? And so we're going to lose those young ladies because they're probably going to find a better job or something closer, probably in Richmond or in one of those counties there. And so what better way that we can utilize our land is to get with developers that will help us build some affordable housing. Maybe for women that are vulnerable that you mentioned, okay? Maybe for seniors. Have y'all checked y'all electric bill lately? I just got my electric bill. My electric bill was $600 this month.
Wow.
And normally it's around $2. So can you imagine our seniors, who are on fixed incomes, right? Now they have to decide, am I going to buy my medicine? Am I going to pay my light bill? Or do I eat? And so I'm just saying, my church, we are trying to be God's hands, feet, and whatever else we can be to help those that are in need. If we can't be that type of community, then I think we just ought to cease to exist. We must make a difference, and we must help those who cannot help themselves. I'll stop right there.
And I appreciate it because I'm going to ask each of you a question, but to piggyback off of what you said, I know each of you came prepared to share about your specialty and your specific organization. So now that you've mentioned about your church and what you're committed to doing at your church, if you are not going to make a difference, you might as well cease to exist. If you could, if this time works for you to kind of go into the presentation that you came to share about the work that you're doing at your church,
Yes.
then we are very open to take a listen, and then we'll move forward with the next.
Absolutely. So I am the co-chair of VOICE, Virginia's Organized for Interfaith Community Engagement. We consist of over 50 faith institutions, Baptist, should I say Protestant, Catholic, Muslim, Buddhist, Unitarian, you name it. And we all come together. We decide what our next big issue that we're going to fight for. And how do we decide that? We hold what we call listening sessions, where we go to churches, we talk to people, and we try to figure out what is the next big thing. Some of the big wins that VOICE was helped to accomplish was this nice big crisis receiving center in Woodbridge at the old Gander building. We fought hard for about 5 years. And we know that mental health is not a partisan issue. All of us know someone who has had a mental health crisis. All right? So this is what used to happen. If there's a family member that lives in your home that has a mental health crisis and nothing you can do with that person, you would call 911. That police officer would come, handcuff them, and then they got to find a psychiatric bed so they can get the care that they can get. Now, what if all the hospitals in Northern Virginia does not have a bed? And then they get a call from Norfolk General Hospital, we have a bed. That police officer has to take that patient all the way down to Norfolk, all right, so they can get the proper care and stay with that person. And at the same time, that person is in handcuffs. So one of the main things is we had to, help people to understand that we had to decriminalize mental health. And then also, as you know, our police officers, they were not trained how to deal with mental health crisis. And so there have been times that people have actually been shot and killed because that person was an imminent threat to that officer. And so the officer felt that he had to do what he had to do. So now what happens, because we have a crisis receiving center, if someone calls 911, the police will come, but also, guess what? A trained mental health specialist from the crisis receiving center will accompany that officer. Number one, to de-escalate the situation, right? Then the officer will take that person, not handcuff them, but will take them and drop them off at the crisis receiving center where they can get the proper care that they need. That is a win-win for everybody. That means that that police officer is not spending a whole day or 2 days off the beat in his community, right? By trying to help somebody that he's not trained to help. And so that was a win, okay? Another one was, a few years ago, Prince William County did not have a public defender's office. And so we did another listening session. Matter of fact, it was my idea. I like to toot my own horn on that one. I said, we need to do something. Prince William County needs to have a public defender's office. And guess what we fought? The state provided funds, the county provided funds, and now we have a standing, vibrant public defender's office. And here's why that's good news. Because sometimes people get charged with things that they did not do. And because they don't have the money to afford a lawyer, guess what? They take plea deals. They take plea deals. Even though they may not have committed crime, but they cannot afford a lawyer, so they take plea deals. And so, thank God, we now have a public defender's office. Now we are fighting for affordable housing. In the state legislation this year, Senator McPike and Senator Carol Ford. Thank you so much, Carol Ford. They have co-sponsored a bill that faith institutions who own land by right, okay, can now decide to build affordable housing if we have a nonprofit developer that will partner with us, all right? And so, again, that is another win because if we have land, we ought to be able to decide what we can do with that land because we own it. One of the problems is the rezoning issue, zoning, all right? And you have what you call proffers from the county. We'll let you build, but guess what? Y'all got to pay for sewage all the way down this road. Y'all have to pay for a stoplight. Y'all have to pay for maybe a turning lane. All right? Those are hundreds and thousands of dollars that is added on. Okay? And so what we're saying is make it easier because a lot of our churches don't have that kind of money. like developers do to spend. Good example, there's a church, Clarendon Presbyterian Church, I believe, in Arlington. They have spent over $300,000 trying to build affordable housing without even a shovel hitting the ground. They had to quit their progress and said, you know what, just forget it. Why? Because when people think about affordable housing, they automatically think Section 8. There goes the neighborhood. But we're not even talking about Section 8. We're talking about people like our police officers, our teachers, our firefighters, people that work for the county, public works, if you will, that can be able to afford to live where they work. And so that is what we're fighting now. And so if we can do that, then we can help the most vulnerable in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Sensos. I appreciate it. And that's the perfect segue, because I believe you set up Mr. Venegas perfectly to introduce himself and to tell us more about his work in the county.
Okay, so good evening, everyone, and thank you for the invitation. My name is Alex Venegas. I work in the planning office. I handle land use entitlements. But first, just building on what the Reverend said, there has been a lot of progress here in Prince William County. We are blessed to have several different departments that work collaboratively. We have a great community service, social services, and the police department working together to address some of the issues. And a lot of times it takes activists to bring these issues to the forefront. We have a board of county supervisors that have been very supportive of affordable dwelling units. We recently passed our affordable dwelling unit ordinance, which was a major undertaking. It took 2 years for us to get that through, and now it gives developers more opportunity, more incentive to build affordable dwelling units as part of their applications. So we actually have 2 different pathways that we can take to put affordable dwelling units into a project. The first pathway is through the land use entitlement process, which involves changing the zoning district associated with that project, with that property. So for instance, like if you have a property that is owned by a church and it's in an R4 district, you're allowed to build 4 dwelling units per acre. And but a lot of if it's in an area where you have transit or buses available, then we look to see if we can get higher density that aligns with the comprehensive plan. They may have to go through a rezoning process. And that rezoning, they could rezone it to R16, R30, which would allow them to build the type of developments that we need. Multifamily developments, townhouses, different things. But I think that's important too, is that we have a diversity of housing, because like most of us throughout our lives, I went from renting an apartment to purchasing my first townhouse, then I got a Rambler, and then now I'm living in a house that's too big for me. So I'm looking to downsize. But I mean, that's the reality. We need to make sure that we have housing that's attainable for people at different points in their life, right? And as people transition, you know, whether it be, you know, someone like you had mentioned earlier, you know, that is pregnant and needs a place to live, they should have that right to transition to a property that they can purchase, because you know, ownership is where you build that generational wealth. So that's very important. So primarily in my department, we deal with the rezonings, land use entitlements associated with that. So if they're changing the zoning, we will get involved in that process. We also have, as part of the affordable dwelling unit ordinance, we have the opportunity for by right bonus density. So if they have, for instance, R4 and they want to go to R6 and get that bonus density, they have that option to go by right, which saves them the time so that they don't have to go through the land use entitlement process, which has to go to the Planning Commission as well as the Board of County Supervisors. And that can add a 12 to 15 month depending on the complexity of the case. We're seeing a lot of promise, but we need to continue to work towards making more houses affordable. I mean, most of my staff actually lives outside of Prince William County. They live in Spotsylvania, Stafford County, Loudoun County, and that to me is a challenge, because you want people to be able to live where they work, and that's less traffic on the road. I guess we all would like to see a lot less traffic, but those things are important to us. So one of the things we're seeing with over the last 2 years, while we're moving forward with the affordable dwelling unit ordinance, we're seeing residential applications where the developers were actually putting affordable housing in, programming it as part of their application, which is good because we didn't even ask for that up front. They just were willing to do that, knowing that there's a need for affordable housing, workforce housing. So they were all contributing to that as part of their development. Now with the affordable dwelling unit ordinance, they can actually do that, a lot of that process by right if the underlying zoning district matches that. So there is a lot of opportunity there, and I know that the county is working, county executive, the board of county supervisors, they have a legislative liaison that pushes and advocates for what the board has as a priority. And that's one of the things, affordable housing is definitely a high priority for everyone, so.
Thank you so much. And then Steve, we'll hand it over to you, bringing your background into the conversation where you have navigated individuals through affordable housing and or below the affordable housing threshold. If you could just share your presentation with us, we'd appreciate it.
Sure thing. You may have wondered by the bio that she read, what's this guy doing up here at the table? Didn't mention the fact that I'm currently also the CEO for Habitat for Humanity Prince William, and was previously the CEO for Action and Community Through Service here in Prince William County. My first job was actually living in a homeless shelter, so I know from which I speak a little bit. You told a personal story, so I'm going to piggyback on that. I believe that community can make a difference and help us out. The mission for Habitat for Humanity is seeking to put God's love into action. Habitat for Humanity brings people together to build homes, community, and hope. And our vision is very simple. We just want a place where everyone has a decent place to live. When I was in 5th grade, my father lost his job. I'm one of 5 kids. Seems pretty small family then. But my dad was unemployed or underemployed for 5 years. We were working minimum wage jobs multiple times. The only reason we didn't lose our house is because the community helped us. We would come home and there'd be groceries on our back porch. We'd open the mailbox and there'd be a cashier's check in the mailbox. It was people like you that enabled us to keep our home. That's how I knew I wanted to do what I do. Habitat is very much about home ownership. You talked about the generational wealth. That if you own your own home, there's the stability that it brings to your children and the pride that you take in ownership. So Habitat, we work only with people who own their homes. We do a considerable amount of critical home repairs, and that's everything from putting HVAC systems into people's houses. We did 3 of those in the last 2 months. One of the women had been using space heaters for 2 years in their house. Most of our clients are either single moms or seniors on a fixed income. That's primarily who we work with. We also do sell houses to folks. It's not a handout. We don't have free houses. It doesn't work that way. You have to be working full time and you have to be able to get a mortgage. We end up helping you get a lower rate mortgage and we have some funding that we can bring to bear to bring down the overall cost of the house. But it's a mortgage. We had one family move in May last year, single mom, 2 kids. We're moving another family into a home May of this year, single mom, 1 kid. These are our neighbors. When you think about people who need housing, the ones we just housed, they were all working. You know, the woman that we're working with now, she lives in a house with her sister, her brother-in-law, her cousin, and however many children it takes to add up to 10 people in the house. So getting her into her own place, that's going to change the trajectory of her family. Things will be different for her. We want to be able to be that change. And I want to tie it in a little bit to the idea of building houses on church properties. We're not going to be able to certainly build an apartment complex, but if there are small churches that have some land that would like to build a house or a couple of small houses, an organization such as ours can come in, and we got low cost or free labor, low cost or free supplies. We could help a small church develop housing on that property. There's a ready partnership that could be had here. So the fact that the county is starting to open up to the idea that churches, they have land that is theirs to use, and they want to use it to help people. We're finally at a place where we're saying, okay, we'll let you do that.
Thank you so much for sharing. We'll come back because you've presented a lot of information that's going to be the catalyst for some of our questions throughout the night. Thank you so much. Mr. Davies, if you could go ahead and share with us. I think Steve has also done a great job preparing you to share, and especially trying to keep cost of housing low, breaking poverty cycles and building generational wealth. If you could go ahead and share some with your organization with us.
Yes, I'm George Davies, Executive Director of CFH, which we are now known as Creating Foundations for Hope. Many people may know us as Catholics for Housing. That was from many years ago. And today I just kind of wanted to touch base on an alternative form of affordable housing. We own the East End Mobile Home Park right here in Manassas on Route 28. And I just want to go over a little bit because in the end of this, there's some questions I'm presenting, and I'm going to give you a few answers because this helps people afford housing. And we had another project that came into our hands this year, and I think it's been a success story, although it caused relocation. So I want to end with that. But one of the things I want to do is the East End Mobile Home Park was a mobile home park that actually had failing water and sewer, and there was also surge every so often around. The roads were falling apart, and we were able to step in to acquire this mobile home park. However, we had to make certain commitments to the city and also to the tenants. One of the things we had to commit to them for this acquisition was that we would hold the rent stable for 5 years, that we would actually provide snow removal because there was no professional management. So we make sure when there's snow, we're prepared for that because that would be one of the things they're going to come back to us for. And we had to dedicate ourselves into completing the infrastructure improvements, which was new water, sewer, and roads. For that acquisition to take place, we purchased the property for $1.4 million, saving it from closure and condemnation because they were facing condemnation. And it was funded by seller financed loan. That's the only way we, as a small nonprofit, were able to afford that. But the actual heir of that property was a person who was disabled. Her mom and dad passed away, so it was in a trust. So that's why there was no professional management, because it was the attorney of the trust that was managing the property. So that's when we stepped in, and the heir needed about $10,000 a month. So we assured them that when they're taking back this loan for us, they were guaranteed $10,000 a month. And so that's the way we were able to finance that. Then there's a piece on infrastructure, because the city was gonna get on us if we didn't complete the infrastructure improvements. And that's where Metro IAF, from the reinvestment fund, which I think Voice is an affiliate.
Used to be.
Yeah, well, okay, used to be, was able to step up and provide us with the funding for the infrastructure improvements, which we were grateful for. And then there was something else called a tenant assertion. So I don't know if anybody's aware of that, but what the tenants did is put their money in the court because the infrastructure needed to be improved. So that was causing the need for the owner to have to sell because he had no income coming in at all. So they were able to collect $350,000 between that process. So that actually came back to CFH to help us with our improvements. So that helped fund some of that. And we're grateful for the tenants of doing that, but they were grateful that they had a partner that they can rely on. So then we put new water, sewer, and new roads, and we had engineering expenses, tree canopy work, working with the city on zoning and all that. We did additional lighting, and now the city of Manassas actually owns the water and sewer lines, so that really helped keep the property affordable, because before we were paying, the owner was paying for the water and sewer with the rents. So that actually reduced the expenses for that property. So now we have, after those infrastructure improvements, we had the help of Virginia Housing because they had interest at that time of trying to, how we can get into that area of maintaining manufactured housing as affordable housing. So they provided us with a grant for us to renovate our resource center, which now houses a food pantry, and then we also have educational components that happen out there. The playground equipment was also paid with the Virginia Housing Grant. That was donated by the Benedictine Sisters, but we had to move it, and thanks to Prince William Habitat, they coordinate that whole project for us and had the equipment moved. And they also renovated our resource center. So it's kind of important to notice that, you know, a lot of us at the table have had some kind of interaction in the past, and I'm sure we will have some more in the future. So, you know, there's a lot of things that go on that we may not specialize in, but there's other partners that do, and to make it happen. And I just want to give you an update. The current status of the park is all the water, sewer, and everything's been completed. I wanted to also mention the rents originally were set at $650. And that was in 2018. Rents still are affordable, and the lot rents go from about $700 to $850 because it depends if there was turnover or not. And some units tend to go within the family. It's generational. So my brother, my cousin, whatever, is usually selling the unit, and they sell it to one of the relatives, and it just passes down in that way. What's important is we refinanced in 2022, so we have a Virginia Housing loan now, so we paid off the Metro IAF, and we also paid off the owner, the original owner. So we have a good loan rate, and we also have restrictions on affordability. So that helps protect it, to keep it active in the community. And now the park was considered as a model for preserving mobile home parks as affordable housing, which then led to the Virginia Manufactured Lot Rental Act, which now requires that it be posted at the state level if there's going to be a sale. There's between 90 and 100 days. They have to give the residents notices, which then they can go ahead and say, hey, we want a nonprofit to represent us and present another offer. And we have done that in the past. Not successfully, because there's no teeth in the law. It ends at, did you receive the offer? Yes, I did. And nothing more goes beyond that. And we have had an opportunity in Fairfax County And the county stepped up to provide us the funding and said, well, you just need to refinance in 2 to 3 years with Virginia Housing. I said, oh, that's fine, as long as we have the money. We only have 60 days to present an offer. But that didn't go through, and that's what we're seeing is they get the offer, but they don't really review the offer. And the issue with that is if you're offering $500,000 more, they've already entered in a contract, are there legal fees and stuff that they get into because they already signed the contract? That's a question. I think that's a hesitation on the owner's side. But anyway, we were able to make that project work. And then I kind of want to like, why is this relevant today? One is mobile home parks are a highly valued asset class. The values are rising, so you have real estate investment trusts and all that stuff have an interest in packaging these. Sometimes they redevelop, sometimes they just package a dozen or so together and then they float it out and try to sell it as a package, which puts all these residents at risk. So basically, they're at risk of losing their home because an owner decided to sell the land. Whereas you and I had a deed on our property, it's ours until we decide we want to sell it. So that's the risk that the residents have. One of the other issues that come up is owners are aging, and so it places the mobile home park at risk of disposition because the next generation doesn't want to deal with the mobile home park, so it just gets left to the side and then it gets sold and they want the biggest money because now they can retire. And then you have risk of redevelopment. And I kind of want to end up with this example we just experienced in Leesburg, which is Loudoun County, but this is what potentially can happen to every mobile home park that's in this county or any other county. They were given notice that they had to leave by January 31st, 2026, in July, and they were given through January this year to leave. He wasn't selling, so it never goes through the state process to follow the law. He's just saying, I will get you out of here, and then I can decide if I want to resell it or redevelop it. And then I don't have to comply with the state law. So one of the things we did with Leesburg, they were at a point where this is the second time they were threatened with a sale and being displaced. They decided they didn't want to fight the owner. Would have loved to own the property for them like they did in East End. But they didn't want to do that because that was the second time they were threatened. And I think they all decided they really didn't want to live in a mobile home park anymore. Which I don't think that's the best model. The best model is let the profit come in, purchase the property, and we can maintain it and keep it affordable for a long term. So we ended up getting a grant from the Community Foundation, which is Loudoun County money, for $824,000. We provided relocation and displacement services all the way up through June of this coming year. So we're paying rent, utilities, and mortgage. And interesting enough, a majority of those folks are actually, we're paying mortgages for it. Not in Loudoun County, of course. West Virginia, Berryville, Winchester, those who decided to lease or rent, most of them are in Loudoun County, but I think that's school-age children issue. I want to stay in the community I am because I have a high schooler and I want them to graduate in the area that they are, but I can't afford to buy something. Some of them can't even, I don't want to say can't afford the rents, but the rents are much higher than what they're paying for lot rent. And I also want to end with the fact that some people have an idea that mobile homes, what is that? You know, that's questionable housing. But in reality, when you go in, the outside is dated, 70s, 80s, 90s. When you go into them, a lot of these are day laborers. Their houses are beautiful. I've gone in and you see all new appliances. It almost looks like a model of a mobile home if you go down to Clayton Homes or anything like that. And surprisingly, they live very nicely on the inside, but the outsides, not much gets done except power washing or whatever, and windows. So that's kind of where we are with that. But I just want to, one of our goals is to take education for homeownership to the mobile home park, educate the next generation that this is not where you always have to live. There are other options. And part of that says, okay, well, then you're going to lose people living there. But that's not the point. The point is to get those the next generation to understand that there's other opportunities. And then the second piece of that is that it frees up an affordable housing unit for somebody else who is in the need to stay at a low rent until they can afford to take that next step to ownership. And with ownership, you get equity. On a mobile home, you do not.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Davies. I appreciate the presentation from our panelists. So now I thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for the detailed description that you've given us and the work that you're doing within each of your respective organizations. I'm going to open it up to anyone who has a question that you'd like to ask based on what you've heard. Are there any questions from any members in our audience for any one of our panelists? When you're asking your question, thank you that you did the right thing. Raise your hand and please let us know who you're directing your questions to. I'm going to give you the microphone.
I guess this is to Reverend Sessions. If a church develops affordable housing, who owns that housing? And is it a money-making venture that taxes have to be paid on?
Those kind of answers are still in the works, but my model would be that our church would lease the land and that the developer will maintain the management and all of that, because we don't want to get involved in all of that kind of stuff, right? But that we lease the land, we're building another community, right? And we're helping those that maybe a single mother with 2 or 3 children can afford that apartment complex, right? And so, but the bottom line is, and most of the churches that are doing it, they're just leasing the land, okay? And so they get money from leasing the land per month, all right? But a developer will have a management team to manage the property.
Mayor, has to tag on question for that.
Can you give her a mic?
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Oh, great, thank you.
Thank you. So Dr. Sessoms, I would like to ask, you talked about the developers. Are these non-for-profit developers, or tell me about the development group?
Yes, these are nonprofit developers. Some like Wesley Housing, and there's some others that are doing that. Matter of fact, our church is a part of the North Virginia Baptist Association. And we have what you call a headquarters place called the Baptist Center off of Glenkirk Road in Gainesville. Well, that property is old and dilapidated, and we have our annual meetings there, and people don't want to go there anymore. So the Baptist Center board, which I'm a part of, we have decided to meet with some nonprofit developers to help, because we have quite a bit of land over there, all right? And so what they are partnering with us and doing is that they can build a certain percentage of the housing to be affordable housing, and then, then other percentage would be regular price housing, whatever the market is. But what they're going to do for us is that they're going to build us a brand new Baptist Center where we can have our annual conventions. Churches, there are churches who rent out our Baptist Center now. One congregation had a fire and they weren't able to rebuild, and so they used the Baptist Center, but it's old and outdated. I feel ashamed sometimes when we invite visitors, because it's that old. But those are the type of things that are happening with developers that are not-for-profit.
Thank you for the question and thank you for the answer. Do you have a follow-up question to this one? And who's your question directed towards?
I believe it's for Alex and Steve.
Alex or Steve?
First, I just want to say, Steve, I love Habitat at the End. I think it's a wonderful program, just so you know. For Steve, Alex, I think this is your question. And please don't throw rocks at me. But, what is his name? He is a very rich man, and he has invested in a company called Boxables. What is the richest guy here? $1 trillion man. Elon Musk, there you go. So Elon Musk has invested in a company called Boxables, where they take these, similar to Amazon, can deliver a home, mail order, but they're small, they cost about $60,000. You bring that in to a special location and put all of these there. There's different states are doing different types of special programs. And similar to like the trailer parks, you just rent the property out, but you still own that $60,000 box that you can live in. It comes with everything, the kitchen, bathroom, everything. What I'm curious about is for our area, why we don't see special programs. I've seen a lot of new housing on Prince William Parkway, on 234, but I don't see special projects that we should be looking at to help people to afford in our community again. And I'm just curious as to, not to say we need to do Boxables, but why aren't we looking at some type of special program? I heard you say ADU program. I do know Fairfax has an excellent one, and it also sets aside for seniors, but under this ADU, they're not doing that. And just also so you all know, Prince William County only has one county program for seniors for assisted living that accepts Medicaid. Prince William County, as large as we are, we have one facility, Birmingham Green, that accepts Medicaid for assisted living. I'm not talking about nursing home, I'm not talking about memory care, assisted living. We are failing our seniors. And we need to look at that.
So, and did you ask the
Yes,
question?
I did.
Ask them why don't we have a
So
special program?
we can tag team that question. That was a good question. So with respect to the planning office, this is a good plug. We're currently in the process of updating our zoning ordinance so that it aligns with our comprehensive plan. These are the kind of things that we need the community to engage us with. You know, we're reaching out to stakeholders. We're starting the process. We'd love to have you participate in that because right now, the way the zoning ordinance is, we do allow some manufactured homes, but it's limited. We would like to see, you know, opportunities for those types of units that you're talking about because again, it provides us more choices and this would be a great thing. We're also looking at accessory dwelling units and updating our zoning ordinance to deal with that as well, which, you know, people that own property can put a house for their, you know, their parents when they get old or their children, you know, give them an opportunity to own, you know, part of their property and have a place to live. So those kind of things we are evolving towards, and we want to continue to look for opportunities like that. Again, a lot of it's driven by the market. You know, we have affordable houses and then we have market rate housing. And a lot of that, the type of development you're talking about, we do need someone to invest in that or developers to, you know, provide those for people to live in. And I think that's the next step. But I do think that was a great question. And I'll turn it over.
I'm not sure how I can add to that, because it does come down to zoning to enable those type of units to be constructed. I will say, I do love Habitat too. I met my wife when we founded the chapter in college, so.
Thank you. And who would you like to direct your question to?
Well, I'll just ask the question.
Please
is Don Scoggins. I've been involved with affordable housing for a number of decades. But one of the things that I have discovered or have seen has really been an impediment towards affordable housing is that if it's not of a certain size or a certain scale, developers, many times they do not want to deal with it because there's a sweet spot, which is like maybe 30 units and above. And so if you have a project or a proposal that's maybe like scattered site, for example, it costs just as much to do one house or one project than it does one that's maybe 30, 40, or even 100 units. So getting a developer to come in and do some of these things is something that you really have to give some consideration to. So, you know, it's easier said than done, you know, about the county should do this or this, that, the other. But when it comes, you have to put the pencil on paper and figure out the numbers and things like that. There's a big gap between what you will get out of it in terms of the return versus what you have to put into it. So filling the gap is the question. Now, I did hear someone say they got some grant money from
Virginia Housing.
Yeah, Virginia Housing. Yeah, I'm familiar with that. So that's something. So whoever has these proposals, it'd be good to, even before you get too far into it, try to find out where you're going to get the money from. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Davies, would you like to comment on that, or?
And I think the thing is, we're, as a nonprofit, not always sitting there going, oh, should we shop here or shop there, like a developer is. Specifically, he's already ran his numbers, he already knows what he's building, and he knows he has to do 60 units or 100 units to be able to fit on that land. Or do I need to ask for density bonuses to really make the numbers work? We as a nonprofit, if we knew of a piece of land that was within that zoning, we would actually consider it. But we don't have the, I don't want to say the expertise, because we probably could do it, it's just the time and the bandwidth. Because when you talk about $60,000 units, maybe under 60, maybe 30 units, that could serve seniors, I would love to have the project. It's just a matter of finding that right size piece of land that is available, that's not in a flood zone. See, we've looked at some things. It's in a flood zone, so 20% of it can't be used. Or if you do, there's other things that you have to do to make that work, which then adds to the cost. And that $60,000 unit is now $100,000 because we thought it was going to be 60 when we started, because there's just added cost. Because we have looked at a project or two in Prince William to try to make something work, but the numbers end up not working because they're so small. And we would love to be able to provide that type of a product. And I believe now the HUD code doesn't require mobile homes to have a chassis. So that, we'll see how that pans out as we go along. But that's another component. It becomes almost like a manufactured home as opposed to a mobile home. So that's a component. And then that would be a fight with the city of Manassas, since we have 2 lots. Can we put one of those there or not? Because that has a foundation, and originally it's grandfathered in the zoning, and it's a mobile home park. And that required a chassis. So that's a whole other thing. To get 2 more units in there in a different style might be more costly because of the legalities of that and presenting your plans and engineering. Whereas now we can at least just do a placement of the mobile home.
Thank you.
So can I just add, first of all, John, thank you for bringing that information up, because the cost to do this, the density that's needed to make it work, there's also, like was mentioned, environmental constraints. If you have a stream running through that property, it limits the area. So a lot of times with developers, density is the key, but also I've found dealing with a lot of developments, sometimes they can't go too high because then the cost of the construction goes up, like you said. So it's really finding that sweet spot for them to make this work so that they can actually make a profit. So that's primarily what you deal with is, the developers need to be able to make that work for them. Now, there's ways that can be dealt with, because I know some communities, they provide incentives to bring down that cost, so therefore, the applicant or developer can make those numbers work. And again, everything, they have these formulas that they do to decide how much money they're gonna make from a project. They have to get loans and they pay interest on those loans. So it's a really complex process for them. I'm glad I'm not involved in that, but all that needs to be taken into consideration. And again, a lot of it's driven by any constraints associated with that property, as well as any incentives that can help them move that project into the realm where it's affordable.
Can I say something? I failed to mention that Voice is a part of a larger organization. You might want to look that up, called the Commonwealth Housing Coalition. And this is about 50 different groups, also nonprofit developers as well. All of us came together to make sure that this legislation, SB 488, I believe, the Faith in Housing Bill. It is important that, and we're fighting for this bill because churches, of course, don't have the continuous resources as other people have to build, all right? And so we have to be specific and intentional. And so we have to, there's a whole lot of bureaucracy, when it comes to building. And we're asking the state and the county to help us, to alleviate a lot of these fees and all these other bureaucracy, red tape things that we have to do, because I told you there was a church in Arlington who spent over $300,000 without putting a shovel on the ground. That $300,000 went specifically to fighting, it was court cases. People that did not want them to build, all right? And they spent $300,000 in legal fees, fighting HOAs, fighting people saying, not in my backyard, okay? And we're saying, yes, in God's backyard. That's what we call it, this Faith in Housing Bill. We say yes in God's backyard, all right? We can do this because we do know that the #1 issue in Virginia right now is affordable housing. That's the problem. Thank you.
I actually want to piggyback off of, I'm so sorry. You can ask your question and then I'll come back, Reverend Sessions. State your name and say who you're directing this question to.
Les Gabriel. I'm now from Stafford County. Used to be in Prince William for a long time. This question is for anybody who knows about what's going on in the churches. Are there any organizations within churches whose mission is to be a go-between between potential housing, people who want to rent out a house or part of their house, and potential residents who are looking for affordable housing? You might include kind of vetting the potential renter, helping them, supporting them, sponsoring them, so forth. Do you know of any organization doing that?
Well, we get calls all the time of people looking for somewhere affordable to stay. I don't know, I can't speak for what other churches are doing, but I have certain contacts of people. There are certain people in my congregation that own properties that they rent out to, and so they always let us know when something becomes available. And so it really just depends on the individual church. I would think that each pastor of the church, you know, has some type of resource that they can help guide, you know, to make that connection from those who have something that's available to guiding that the person who needs somewhere to stay. And so I would say, you know, go to the local pastor first, okay, and start from there. And I think you'll find some help doing it that way.
Thank you. Thank you. Reverend Tessums, I just wanted you, thank you, was your question answered? You mentioned about the red tape, a lot of red tape for your progress that through Voice you're looking to move forward for Yes in God's Backyard. What are some of those barriers or hurdles that you have through Voice that you've experienced through the county specifically as you're trying to push this housing initiative forward?
Right, so it's just, you know, the zoning laws themselves. Arlington County just changed their zoning laws a couple of years ago, and guess what? Those zoning laws were created during Jim Crow days. And we know why, you know, those laws was created, to keep certain people out of the community, okay? And so, so zoning is the problem. That is the number one problem, zoning, okay? They have laws, they have rules, but we're saying because we own the land by right, alleviate the zoning laws for us, all right? So we can help with the need that the county really needs help with, all right? If we have the land, we have a nonprofit developer that is willing to build, then make it easier for us to do that, all right? Partner with us. And then at the same time, you know, alleviate some of these proffers, you know, because, hey, if I'm board of supervisor and you want to build something, you know, maybe the county says, well, okay, you can build, but guess what? We want you to take this sewage line, and we want you to bring it all the way down Bakestown Road until it gets to Route 1. That's where our church is, right? We would have to pay.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? So alleviate us. Now, we're not saying we don't have to pay anything, but relieve us of some of that cost.
I appreciate the passion behind that concern, because I think you hit a home run, but guess who has the mitten to catch that ball? Mr. Venegas. Let's hear what you have to say in response.
I appreciate that feedback, and you know, I do agree that sometimes zoning can be a barrier. Again, this is a great plug. The planning office is updating their zoning ordinance, and we need input. You can go to PwC Planning. And we have, on one of the headers, we have the zoning ordinance update. I think we have a dedicated page. And also at PwC Works, we have a page regarding the zoning ordinance update. So I would suggest everyone try to participate and share your thoughts on that, because that's where we get, you know, the opportunity to build something that works for the next 20 years. So I would recommend that. So also, we do, like I mentioned before, because of the work of individuals like you that worked with as stakeholders in our affordable dwelling unit ordinance update. With that, we do have some flexibility in bonus density and proffered language. Now, there's one thing that we don't control, the difference between the city of Manassas and Prince William County. The city of Manassas owns their water system, water and sewer system, so therefore they have a little more flexibility. In Prince William County, we have an authority, which is an independent quasi-government that owns their own system, and therefore the county does not own that. So with that, it would require some conversations with Prince William Water on, you know, what can be done, you know, to help them out. But they're primarily driven by growth pays for growth, so you know that's their model. But when it comes to the zoning ordinance, your input and everyone else's input is what makes a difference, so that we actually get a zoning ordinance that works and minimizes impediments for individuals. Because here in the county, we want to see good projects move forward. We want to see people have opportunities, to build generational wealth. We want to make sure that people, have the ability to move up to, a better house. So those things are important to us too, as staff, and we want to see that come to fruition. But we do need your help in providing your feedback on things like that.
So technically, you just extended an invitation to all of us here
Absolutely.
to go, and what's the web address again?
So it's the planning office for Prince William County. I can send you the link, the exact link, so that you guys have it. And that has primarily all the information regarding our zoning ordinance update. And, all these things are important to us. I mean, we even get feedback from developers that, because sometimes they feel like sometimes there's limits, and we want to make sure that we have, the opportunity for people to do business here in Prince William and have a good product, quality product. Like even with the affordable dwelling units that exist in a lot of our residential applications, you're not supposed to be able to tell the difference between an affordable dwelling unit and the rest of that development. And it's mixed throughout the development, so you don't know who owns an affordable house and who doesn't. So that's important to us, and that came from a lot of the supervisors wanting to make sure that we considered that. So we work together with all our partners, and we do appreciate any feedback.
Mr. Sessoms, with the Voice, I know, I'm so sorry, I'm coming to you, Steve. The Voice has the power of the people to mobilize large numbers. So would you say Mr. Venegas' response is a reasonable one, to mobilize the power of the people to influence change by accessing the website and contributing the input?
No question. I mean, look at the change that Prince William has gone through in the last 10 to 15 years. Major change has happened in Prince William for the better. Okay, so Prince William, and what I like about, as far as I'm concerned, our county supervisors, they are willing to sit down and listen. That's what I like. Okay, and whatever concern that we have, they even have set aside money for, what was it? They set aside money for housing.
Housing fund.
Housing fund, yes, the housing trust fund, absolutely. And so, major hurdles have been made. We've come a long way, and I say that that we must, all of us must do better attending these board of supervisor meetings, attending the planning commission meetings, those type of things, because really, if you want to see change, you have to be present. And I even have to do better at that myself.
Appreciate it. I'm sorry, Steve, go ahead. Thank you for that.
Mine was a simple question. What's the deadline for our input?
That's a great question.
So this is a major overhaul. We're starting the process now, so now is the time to provide your input. And even throughout the process, they'll have work sessions. I know that they'll have public hearings eventually. So there's many avenues of opportunities to provide input.
So this is the very beginning of the process.
We're at the beginning of the process. That is correct.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Tony.
I'd like to ask a question. I got a couple of questions here. One, when you mentioned the
Who
trailer
are you
park.
directing it to?
To the trailer park.
Mr. Davies. Mr. Davies.
You mentioned an amount that those trailer sites were worth. Was that for the pad or was that for the unit itself too? That'd be my first question. I want to get to that.
That's for the pad.
That's what I thought. All right. So
I can give you a little, typically when we see them turn over, they're selling between 28 to 45. So you'd be paying 800 plus if you got a mortgage, but most people in that amount, they're paying, I see a lot of times it's paid cash.
Well, I'm listening to a lot of the conversation here, and some of the conversation for affordable housing, in my mind, is who's gonna pay for it? Now, the county has this pie in the sky that the developer's gonna pay for it. And I'm not sure that hasn't happened in the 40, 50 years I've been in this county. The developers, they're out, they need to make money. That's gotta be, they absolutely gotta make money. And you mentioned something about having to put a sewer in down the whole line of the road. Well, that's the way it's been doing in this county forever. If you want to develop a piece of land that's 20 miles from the sewer line, you gotta run the 20-mile sewer line. Now, at one time, there used to be where you'd run the 20-mile sewer line, and as people hooked into it, you'd get reimbursed.
Right.
I don't know if they still do that or not.
They do.
Okay. Well, so that's money.
But a lot of people
That
don't
was
want to.
adding, I know they don't,
Right.
people want somebody else, that's what I'm saying, it's about money.
Yeah.
Now, I got one question for the zoning department I'd like to answer. Why has the, and then I kind of follow up on that, why has the county not looked at trailers and that kind of manufactured home being an answer to affordable housing? That would be, so you save that percent. The other thing is, how can your group and our group convince the Board of Supervisors to find ways to lower construction costs? Because back in the day, it used to be all these added things were added to the construction costs that were things that the Board of Supervisors voted on to increase the prices, including sewer hookups, including water lines and all that kind of stuff. So the question, why isn't the county avoiding trailers all these years? And why would we not want to get the county to try to lower costs for developers?
Thank you.
So both good questions. First, can I go back to the density issue? I'm sorry, to the connection fees and all that. So what helps a developer put in affordable units, where they get their incentive is through that bonus density. So if you're allowed to build 4 dwelling units per acre, but you got a bonus density where you can do 6 dwelling units per acre, that's where they save money on the cost, therefore they can afford putting the affordable units in there. So a lot of it's, based on the market. There's certain things that as a county we can control and certain things that we can't. Construction materials are out of our realm, and we're seeing a lot of cost. From what I'm hearing from developers is the cost for construction materials has gone up for certain products significantly. So that's making it hard for them to, save some money, because they're always looking for ways to save money so that they can make money. And, that's one of the challenges that we cannot control. Again, in Prince William County, we don't control water and sewer. That's done through Prince William Water. But as discussed earlier, there are mechanisms where if someone builds a line, people can pay into it and save on that overall cost. So that's another mechanism that could be used. As for trailers, mobile homes, again, that's driven by the market. We don't control that. We do have in our zoning ordinance, we do allow mobile homes, as it's one of the under the residential zoning districts. So we do allow that to occur. So, but as you get into the more detailed, like the other types of mini homes and things like that, right now, that's something that we would need to evolve our zoning ordinance so that we could do that.
Thank you for the questions. I think I have a question. Are there any other questions? I think it's for Steve, Mr. Sessoms, and maybe Mr. Venegas, I'm not sure. It's a combination, it's a combo. So, Mr. Sessoms, you talked about the Northern Virginia Baptist Training Center as a location where the church, the faith-based properties could be used to erect affordable housing units or a variety of multi-dwelling units on that campus. How, and then Steve, you had said earlier when you were introducing the work that you've done, that you would be available and ready to partner with Mr. Sessoms and to support their initiatives to get houses erected.
And then in response, I think so, right? Did I get that right? To partner to like provide housing support or housing construction support. And then earlier, Mr. Sessoms, you answered that nonprofit developers are gonna be the developers that would be partnered with to create the planning for these faith-based properties.
Mm-hmm.
How are you partnering with nonprofits who are already in housing, like us, with a model that's very successful that could possibly be scaled to utilize the support of Mr. Liga and also the power of voice to use a model that's already proven to be effective in the use of faith-based properties?
So I know with the North Virginia Baptist Association, they're already, I wouldn't say pretty much signed, sealed, and delivered with a nonprofit, but they're close. They're close to doing that, okay? Because that's been a long time in the works. As far as with Little Union, our church is concerned, we're open to, and this is why we're having these conversations, right?
Yes.
So that we can know who we could partner with, okay, when the time comes. We have, again, across the street from us, there's a lot of land behind our parking lot across the street that is owned by the federal government. And it's been owned by the federal government for years. There's no plan to do nothing with it, right? So what we're going to start doing, and thanks to Mr. Don Scoggins, he told me, because we met earlier in the week, he said, Pastor Sessoms, the first thing you might want to do is meet with your local congressman, and happens to be in our church, Congressman Venable. Get with him, that maybe he can have conversations with the Department of Agriculture who owns the land, and maybe they can sell us acres upon acres upon acres for $1, right? Because again, the government is not into making profit, right? They're not doing nothing with the land. And so, but we can do something useful with it. And so that's where we are right now, all right? Having those conversations. And then once we get that land, right, then we can bring on other partners to help us put shovel in the ground.
Thank you. Thank you. Steve, I see you're preparing also to provide us with a response as well.
Yeah, I would say Habitat can help on the smaller scale. The churches that I know of that are actively pursuing or looking for housing on their properties, like you're talking a large piece of land where there'd be multiple units. I'm working with a church in Herndon, and they want to put a 92 unit building on their site. That's something way beyond the Habitat scale. But if there was a smaller scale, the church wants to turn over their parsonage for housing and that needs rehab, we could do that. If the church was willing to sell off a piece of that land at a lower price, then we could build a house on that and guarantee that it would be affordable. So smaller scale, single units at a time, that's would be our sweet spot, not the apartments.
Thank you for sharing. I'm coming. Tell us your name and who you're directing the question to.
Hi, my name is Fatima Abdullah. I am the Executive Director of Aya Housing Collective. We are a small emerging nonprofit affordable housing developer based out of Prince William County. And so the question I would like to ask to Director Venegas is, for smaller community-based nonprofit developers, do you have any incentives or assistance for the entitlements process and the costs that are associated with rezoning for affordable housing projects?
So that's a great question. My department doesn't necessarily deal with that. We do have other departments that may provide assistance. And as was previously mentioned, the board did start a housing trust fund that provides opportunities for developing properties that contain affordable housing. The other incentive that we have throughout the process is, as was mentioned before, is the proffers. You know, if we know it's affordable housing, LIHTC, those types of development, you know, we might not charge as much for certain things, you know, like, most of the time you have to contribute to schools, right? Anytime a residential development comes in. If it's affordable units, we do not put that in the equation of, and then also if it's a LIHTC project, it doesn't go into the equation of money that needs to be paid to the schools. So there's a lot of different avenues that we can use. Offers are a good mechanism, but from a financial standpoint, you know, we can reach out and see if the Housing Trust Fund can be used for those types of activities.
Can I say something? You was talking about schools. I'm hearing some talk that maybe because, you know, especially where high schools are, there's plenty of land where high schools are right now. And there's some talk that maybe, you know, some affordable housing can be built, you know, close to where these high schools are. So that's another option that the county is looking into. And I think that's a good idea as well.
Thank you. Belle, go ahead and tell us your name and who you're directing the question to.
My name is Belle O'Neill. I'm Easton of the Potomac District. I work all over Northern Virginia, which brings me to ask this question. I want to direct this to George Davies because I know he can talk about things and his hands are in a lot of different holes, even though he stays behind closed doors. At the same time, I'm curious to know, Alex Venegas, how your work brings you to see the differences between what Prince William County, our region, including Manassas Park, what we're doing for affordable housing and how that compares to our neighboring counties, Loudoun, Fairfax, Arlington, someone was mentioning, Alexandria, like what's going on around us, how do we stack up, how do we compare, are we doing what we need to do, should we be following models from our neighbors? I keep hearing of the church, I think in Herndon, that is doing what? That's my question.
Thank you. I can start a little bit because we serve a large region. And there's a couple different things. When you talk about affordable dwelling units, every jurisdiction has their own way of developing those zoning ordinances. And some are administrative, some are, Loudoun County wants to have control of their ADUs, so they find the families to fill it. And Fairfax County has a process that if they don't find a first-time home buyer for the unit on day 61, it can be purchased by any nonprofit as a rental, affordable rental. So we play that game in Fairfax County. Loudoun, we can't get in because they want to control, and I don't think Prince William has any indication or any thing in there for nonprofits. So it all depends on the jurisdiction. We own units in Arlington too because they have a provision in there. We just recently got two in Fairfax County because they didn't find a homeowner. One of the other things I know in Loudoun, they actually just took a affordable dwelling because it's 100% affordable. They ran it through their zoning process in less than, I think, 16 months. The whole process, but they specialized this zoning process. This was the first time they tried it. And it was a shorter period of review. It was to get the shovels in the ground and get the project running. And they're trying to implement this model across the board for all the next projects that come in. So they're kind of doing an analysis on this right now. So there are different ways, it's just a matter of how the county works.
That's a great question. So state legislation allows different municipalities to implement an affordable dwelling unit ordinance. Prince William County, we just completed ours back last year. So we're still in the evolving process, learning process. I know some of the other counties, there's a few other counties that actually have affordable dwelling unit ordinances as part of their county code. And there's a lot in the Commonwealth of Virginia that do not. So Prince William, we're continuing to move and make progress. One thing I can be proud of is that for most of the residential projects that we've approved in the last 2 years, have had at minimum 10% affordable dwelling units as part of their project. That's a major change. We weren't seeing that before. So I think that's one thing that we take pride in, is that we, working with the different departments as well as the Board of County Supervisors, to approve proffers that allowed us to do that until we got our affordable dwelling unit ordinance passed. And now having flexibility to get even more affordable units, I think that's a continued step in the right direction. And I know all counties, regardless of the programs that they have, it's always a learning curve, and sometimes they make mistakes and they learn. We did reach out to these other communities to try to learn from them the lessons learned, so that what we were doing is something that we felt would be very successful and continue to add to our pool. I've lived in Prince William County since 1970. I've seen a lot of change, and I'll be honest with you, my personal opinion, some of the changes have been for the better, and some have created additional problems. And that's why, with our applications that come in, we try to proffer things to minimize those types of problems, like with schools, for a while we were always behind in schools. We had trailers in a lot of the schools. Now we're making sure that we capture the true cost of service for these developers, to make sure that what we get is a product that helps to build the community. But with that being said too, we also realize with affordable units, in order to get them, we need to have those incentives in place. So it is a learning process. We are learning from something that's new to us. But from my standpoint, I can say that I'm proud that over the past 2 years we've gotten commitments that we didn't get before. So.
Thank you so much. We're gonna start wrapping up, but I wanted to just direct this question to you, Mr. Venegas. I think the statistics are showing that Prince William County needs to build or make available about 3,000 homes per year to close that 20,000 housing gap by 2040. After hearing Mr. Reverend Sessom's plan through Voice and their initiative for creating all these different plans for housing, how motivated or how inspired are you or the county can become to expedite the process, or is there enough energy from what you've heard, especially as we're looking at those numbers, to close those numbers, to kind of expedite the process to get the permits and the zoning and the acquisition of resources, so that Voice and Mrs. Sessom's team could move forward at a faster rate? Is there any motivation or incentives that could be had for them?
So, starting off with the housing gap that you had mentioned, we do work with the Council of Governments and our neighboring jurisdictions to make sure that we contribute to our fair share of that housing, residential housing that's needed in the region. And I think we've done a fairly good job here in Prince William County, because the last quarter of last calendar year, 2025, we approved, I think it was close to 4,000 units, residential units. That's a major accomplishment. And, there was a lot of pushback from the community, because as we mentioned up here, sometimes people don't want developments in their backyard. But the reality is, there is land, and sometimes you got to look at the zoning. Behind my development, there's a farm, but that farm I know is going to be developed someday, because they're at, I think, R6, or I can't remember if it's R4 or R6. So I know that they have the right to, by right, build development there. So I think, we just need to be realistic about it and also work together. I think one of the best things that we've done in the planning office, and I gotta give Tanya Washington, our director, great credit for this, is she's making sure that applicants conduct community meetings with the community in which they're building, regardless of what they're building. And I think that's made a significant difference in people being more aware of what's coming their way. And I think that those types of things get the community engaged. And I really think, when Tanya introduced that concept, because a lot of other municipalities actually do that, we're seeing a lot more difference in people being more understanding about the type of development, especially when it comes to residential. As for the appetite, my personal opinion is, yes, we need to work together to continue this process of bringing affordable housing in Prince William County. We need to look at different tools in order to make that happen. One of them being partnerships with, churches and allowing that type of development. And that's just one of many mechanisms that we can work together to make sure that we provide a variety of housing, because we have a lot of high-end housing, we have a lot of low-end housing. We have that missing middle is what a lot of communities are talking about, and how we get those types of developments that have diverse housing at different price points, so that people can move up to a new and different type of house. So yes, I believe the county does have an appetite, but we need your help when we're doing the zoning ordinance update and working with the Board of County Supervisors. And then also, I think Don had mentioned about working with, when it comes to federal property or even state property, working with your congressman. I can give a perfect example, the Wharton Workhouse, if anyone's familiar with that. That was formerly a prison that got converted over to both residential and space for arts and also history. Those types of things are win-win, and it does take incentives from the federal government working with developers. So all these are tools that we can put in our toolbox, but we do need help with the community and stakeholders to refine those tools so that they actually work, and then learn from them what's working and what's not working, and then make changes to that.
Very quick, I just have two things to say. First is that there's a concept that's being considered nowadays as far as developing schools. Instead of going sprawling out, they're going up. And by going up 1 or 2 stories more, that will lessen the need to have a big footprint for that particular project. And the land that you don't need for the school can go towards maybe some type of mixing middle or affordable housing. The second thing is, and I haven't heard anyone mention it, and that is the data center. The data centers has been in competition with some of these potential sites for housing. So the data centers, from what I understand and what I see, they're the ones that got all the money. So, and when people are getting ready to sell, who do you think they're going to sell to? So that's something that maybe the Board of Supervisors has to, get some backbone and figure out how they're going to deal with that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So I'll speak on what you were talking about with co-location. We do have some elementary schools in Prince William County now that are going 2-story, so we appreciate that.
Fred Lynn is one of the place people want to.
And also, we're looking at co-locating other government services when we do the multiple-story schools, such as putting a library on that property now, because now the schools taking less of a footprint because it's going upwards. So we look at opportunities like that. One of the things I didn't think about though was housing, and that may be a good conversation to have as another type of opportunity. Oh no, I just turned it off.
Thank you so much. In closing, I would like to present a thought actually, Mr. Davies, I feel like I need to give you shoot an arrow, question right towards you, because I don't feel like I have a question. When you introduced yourself, you say you're formerly known as Catholics for Housing, and I know Catholics for Housing provide a wide array of services, and when you acquire properties, it's more than painting and planting flowers. How do you go about ensuring that you're keeping the costs affordable when you take on so much expense on the front end?
Well, just like any other developer, we have to run the numbers first to make sure it can work. I mean, when I talked about manufactured home parks being sold or up for sale, there's been about 13 or 14 within our jurisdictional area that have gone up in the past 6 months. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but the costs are so outrageous, we can't make the numbers work in an affordable fashion. We're in the $700 to $850 range for lot rents. If we were to purchase at the price that these things are selling for, we would have to be at $1,100. Okay, that's kind of a lot of money, we think, so it doesn't really meet within our mission. So we have to really give that consideration. That's why I think our best approach is to link ourselves with the mobile home park owners before they need to sell, and identify ones that are not owned by large investment trusts. These are long-term, they've been passed from mother, father to daughter, and then to granddaughter or whatever. But now the family's too distant from it, the generational gap, that they don't want to be part of that anymore. But if we're there, because the older folks are thinking, well, these are my people, and I know my mom and dad, I helped collect rents. Those are the ones that we may have the most opportunity to preserve, because they're gonna be like, no, these are my people, I know I can get $1 million more, or $1.5 million, but our 3 generations have worked on this park, and these are the people we know, and we might be able to get to the heartstrings in that case. But trying to keep it affordable, we have to include rents, and rents increase all the time, and we have to, without that, I think we also do a disservice. I learned this in being a landlord and being nice, and not raising rents for 7, 8 years, and then when we went to go sell the property, as soon as they purchased the property, they went up $500 or $600 in rent, and my tenant, that was my tenant, was going to be facing eviction. We negotiated with him to negotiate her rent down temporarily so she can stay. I mean, that's what we did. But it's a disservice not to increase the rents, because when the crisis hits, it hits even harder, because it's not just a $200 increase, it's $400, $500, $600, and most of us can't do that overnight.
Thank you so much. Please give a round of applause to our panelists. This conversation has been very rich. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you taking hours out of your 9 to 5 to come and educate the community and to be with us. Thank you so much. I know the county threshold for affordable housing, I think it's 50 to 80% put into the strategic plan, but the population we serve, they're at 30%. At the poverty level, so we're bringing them up to that 50% threshold so that they could qualify for affordable housing. So as you're making your plans in preparation, please keep the population that we're serving, because I do believe the county is deferring to nonprofits like us to take on the responsibility of carrying the weight of the 30%, and that's families, that's children, that's babies, that's moms, that's generation that we're trying to bring into that wealth building gap. So please take that into consideration. Thank you so much, Reverend Sessoms. Thank you, Mr. Venegas. Thank you, Mr. Liga. Thank you, Mr. Davies. We appreciate you.
thank you so much, and I will hand it over to you so that we can close up for the
Thank
meeting.
you so much. You've been amazing. Oh, yes, actually, your hand.
Great. Let's give another round of applause for our panelists and our fabulous moderators. I have a lot of things I was going to say, but we are running late this evening, which is fantastic, because that means this has been an interesting discussion. Right? It's been great. Thank all of you for staying a few minutes late with us. We really appreciate it. In closing, I just want to remind you all that Prince William Committee of 100 is a nonprofit civic organization that works in Prince William County along with Manassas City and Manassas Park to bring educational programs to our residents. That's what we did this evening. That's what we're going to do again next month when we tackle redistricting. So I hope that you'll mark your calendars for Thursday, March 19th, and join us once again for a very interesting topic. It's going to be interesting. I hope to see you out there. And thank you again for coming out on this rainy evening. Says a lot that you did. And I'd like to thank those who are joining us online. We really appreciate your participation. So without further ado, thank you so much and have a great evening.